Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the 10 real-life lessons every entrepreneur absolutely needs to know. We're drawing all of this from Robert Kiyosaki's incredibly eye-opening material, Before You Quit Your Job. Now, if you've ever dreamt of trading your 9-to-5 for building a multi-million-dollar business, you probably already know it takes a whole lot more than just a catchy idea. It requires a massive, fundamental shift in how you view the world, how you approach risk, and definitely how you understand money. So we're going to unpack exactly what that mindset shift looks like, and more importantly, we'll look at how to actually build a business structure that survives that terrifying leap into the unknown.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're breaking this journey down into 5 stages. First, employee versus entrepreneur. Second, design before you build. Third, the BI triangle blueprint. Fourth, mission, team, and leadership. And finally, the reality of entrepreneurship.
All right. Starting right off with Section 1, Employee versus Entrepreneur and the Mindset Shift.
Listen, the corporate world and the entrepreneurial world, they are basically built on completely opposite philosophies. On one side, you have the employee. They're primarily driven by job security, they act as a trustee of resources, and they're constantly striving to climb that corporate ladder. Basically, when a security-driven person wants to do something, they look at what resources they lack and say, well, I can't start a business, I just don't have the money. Now, contrast that with the entrepreneur. They're driven by freedom. They act as promoters of opportunity, and you know what? Their goal isn't to climb the ladder at all. It's to own the ladder. An entrepreneur sees an opportunity first and says, let's tie up the deal, and then we'll figure out the money. It's an entirely different orientation toward reality.
Employees are hired to not make mistakes. Your job as an entrepreneur is to take risks, to make mistakes, to sometimes fail. Think about that for a second. That completely shatters the traditional paradigm of what it means to do a good job. I mean, in school and in corporate jobs, you're literally hired to not make mistakes, and you get punished if you break the rules. But in the business world, taking calculated risks, making mistakes, and failing, those are actual job requirements. That is exactly how you learn and adapt. If you're playing it completely safe, well, you're still trapped in the employee mindset.
Moving on to Section 2, Design before you build, laying the foundation.
To really grasp the stakes here, consider this intense analogy shared by Rich Dad. Starting a business is like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. In midair, the entrepreneur begins building a parachute. Seriously, imagine plummeting toward the ground and having to build your literal safety net on the way down. That is exactly what launching a new venture feels like. The urgency is absolute. Because if you hit the ground before that parachute is fully built and deployed, well, it is incredibly tough to climb back into the plane and try again.
And that brings us to lesson number 1. A successful business is created before there is an actual business operating. Your most vital job as an entrepreneur is to strategically design and plan the entire structure beforehand. You have to answer the hard questions about your mission, your team, and your risk tolerance way before you ever hand in your resignation letter or spend a single dime on operations.
Up next is Section 3, the BI triangle blueprint. This is your structural blueprint.
When most people think of a business, they immediately think of a product or a service, right? But notice where the product actually sits here. It's just the tiny tip right at the top of the BI triangle. The thing is, a great product will absolutely fail if it isn't supported by the heavy, critical layers beneath it: legal, systems, communications, and cash flow. As the text notes, you could be working incredibly hard, but if you're only focusing on one of these jobs and ignoring all the others, your business is going to struggle big time.
Notice this specific number, 5. There are 5 internal levels inside that triangle, working all the way from cash flow at the bottom up to the product at the top. As an entrepreneur, you have to master, or at the very least properly manage, all 5 of these internal levels just to survive. If your cash flow management at the base is weak, it absolutely does not matter how innovative your product is at the top. The entire internal structure will just collapse. Let's move to Section 4, Mission, Team, and Leadership, the true foundation.
Look at how mission is the absolute foundational base of the triangle here. A truly successful business must solve a problem or fill a real need. It cannot just exist to make money. The text shares this fantastic example of a young man who kept hearing local Chinese restaurants complain about getting a specific type of specialty rice. So what did he do? He solved that problem by importing it himself. He created a highly successful, scalable business just by filling a need. So whether your mission is global, like elevating the financial well-being of humanity, or super local, like providing the best cardboard boxes in town, it serves as your anchor. Without a mission, your product has zero foundation.
Now, let's talk about building your team. Business is 100% a team sport, not a solo act. And your team isn't just the people on your direct payroll. It includes outside advisors like your attorneys and accountants, strategic partners, virtual employees, and joint ventures. You really do not need to do everything in-house. Actually, scratch that, you shouldn't do everything in-house. A successful entrepreneur leverages outside experts and cooperative relationships to grow fast, remain lean, and dramatically increase profitability.
But to bind all those wildly diverse groups together, you need the final border: leadership. A leader's job is to turn people into teams. True entrepreneurs need immense courage and superb face-to-face communication skills to make this work. The source material reminds us that business would be easy if it weren't for people. If you avoid conflict or if you're a stab-them-in-the-back type of communicator, your business simply won't grow. You're basically conducting an orchestra of highly varied talents, and that requires proactive, courageous leadership.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the reality of entrepreneurship, failing, learning, and quitting.
I really want you to focus closely on this number, 14. This represents a grueling 14-month cash flow lag described in the source material. The author ran a company where they had to pay up front for the production of an electronic component. And get this, it took a full 14 months of shipping, selling, and collecting before they actually saw the sales revenue. Imagine managing cash flow for 14 months where money is only going out and nothing is coming in. When cash gets tight like that, you instantly lose focus on the future and go into pure survival mode. That is the intense, unavoidable reality of cash flow management.
So how do you navigate those kinds of crises? Well, you have to embrace a lifelong cyclical process. 1. Start the business. 2. Fail and learn. 3. Find a mentor. 4. Keep failing and learning. And 5. Repeat the process. Remember, getting started is only half the battle, but failing is not the end of the road. It's actually a required repeating step in your entrepreneurial education. You have to be faithful to this process, allowing your mistakes to actively teach you how to refine your systems and fix your cash flow.
But there is a vital caveat here, and it brings us to our final core takeaway. Lesson 10, know when to quit. Now, let's be clear, knowing when to quit isn't about giving up just because things get tough or quitting your day job simply because you're annoyed with it. It's about strategically recognizing if you lack a strong enough mission, or if the foundational pieces of your BI triangle are fundamentally flawed and just cannot be fixed. It is a strategic, objective assessment of your business structure, not an emotional surrender.
So, we've covered the fundamental differences in mindset, the sheer urgency of planning, the mechanics of the BI triangle, and the raw reality of the entrepreneurial process. And I want to leave you with this final, provocative question. Are you truly ready to trade the security of a paycheck for the freedom of the unknown? Take a really hard look at your blueprint, examine your mission, and ask yourself if you're ready to jump and build that parachute on the way down. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this helps you build an unshakable foundation for whatever venture you tackle next.